Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Steven Conway. With me, of course, is Jeremy Finestone. We're
Hello.
contributors to the Fight Game Media Network, and we are ready to talk about some shows that we have had this past week. We went through the whole thing about Kazuchika Okada announcing his departure from New Japan. We've had a few days to digest this, a few shows to watch to see how the crowd reacts. And we are off to the start of the New Beginning tour, and it's been a bit of a rough start. We won't lie about that.
I will tell you this. If Okada announced that he's leaving, did not leave a bad taste in your mouth, that first night of New Beginning in Nagoya definitely would.
We had to deal with some rough stuff this week, and we're going to be very honest about it. Colin is here. Hello, Colin. Glad to see you, sir. Glad you're here to talk over this with us. And we're going to be talking about the New Beginning in Nagoya. We're also going to be covering the two Korakuen Hall shows, which were much better
shows than Nagoya.
And we've got a lot to go into there. We're not going to just break down every single match because a lot of it were preview tags, but there were some interesting developments there at Korakuen Hall as we head toward Tama Tonga's departure. We've now had it. Will Ospreay's is coming. Okada's is coming. Vengan says, I like being right. Well, who doesn't? But fair enough. But we're going to go ahead and get into this one here. It's, again, a few days to digest. On social media, you're seeing a lot of posts of Okada having last nights out. I saw one where he, Tanahashi, and Katsuyori Shibata had some food out and a little drink up there as they say goodbye to one another. There's a little bit of that, some selfies, and you're just seeing a lot of things. The Red Shoes, another one that's there've been a lot of departures in Tama Tonga as well. So it was a bit of a sad weekend in New Japan, and I think it spilled over to the ring a little bit, Jeremy, because there was a real malaise about the performances we saw in Nagoya this past weekend. What was that, Sunday?
That definitely felt like everyone was like, you know what? We're just not feeling it tonight. And the audience wasn't feeling it. Everybody just kind of was going through the motions. By the end of the night, it was just like, look at a good show. As much as you wanted to tell people that, there were good things or that, like, sometimes you just got to be like, this was a mulligan, guys. You can just pick up. And when they got to Korakuen, they kind of got their act together and the energy was back up and the Korakuen crowd brought that one up. But when you talk about Nagoya, man, it was just top to bottom. Everyone was just sad about Okada. And it wasn't like they were angry at the promotion or angry at Okada. They were just sad. Everyone was just sad.
Yeah, everyone seems to understand what's going on there a little bit. So most of the feelings toward Okada are good, but everyone is down in mouth about it a little bit.
Yeah.
And and we're going to get into Nagoya now. So we'll just start that one. What do you say? And you want to go top down, right?
I mean, really, it's the best way to go because we'll touch on stuff as it went down the card, but really anything of note was at the top of this thing.
The main event was the never open weight title match between Evil and Tama Tonga. And what we saw here was a bit of an angle to start the match. So what happened was Tama, of course, had his hair cut by Evil in a heat attack to try to build up this match. So Tama tried to cut Evil's hair before it. And of course, that didn't quite work, but they brawled before the match. Hantai came running out to fight House of Torture, so there was this big group fight that includes Shota Umino, Desperado, ELP, Hikuleo, and that would set things up for a little bit later in the night, and in Korakuen Hall for that matter too. Red Shoes, this brawl goes all over the place. Red Shoes just throws the match out, throws out the main event.
Right.
Now, we knew that something was coming because that happened in about 2.5 minutes right there. And what Tama Tonga did was get on the microphone and said he didn't want it to end that way. He wants, since everybody is already at ringside anyway, let's make it a lumberjack match. So that's what they did. And I think that was basically an excuse just to have everybody out there the whole night. And they went about the match. Now that the match itself went 18 minutes after about the 2.5 minute brawl. And there were a couple of decent spots here in this one, but it wasn't a good match. This lumberjack match wasn't particularly good. One thing I did like was there was a moment where Tama was tripped by one of the House of Torture members when coming off the ropes. And then immediately, and I mean like seconds later, Evil came off the ropes and Desperado tripped him. A little bit of that Rudo still in Desperado, which I enjoyed. And it got a pop from the crowd. The Evil tried to run away with the belt, but the tag champs, ELP and Hikuleo, chased him caught him in the aisle and gave him a purple nurple. If you know the level of work that we're doing here, this was not impressive. Red Shoes somehow got involved in giving the magic killer, you know, when he's
somehow he just put in the position to be one of the bases. Yeah.
Red Shoes is usually 10 feet away from the action, except for just before he's going to get involved. So it's one of the biggest tells in New Japan. And then somehow, Jeremy, being part of the magic killer bumped him because he stayed down for a while after being part of the magic.
It's kind of like a sling blade where the momentum taking you down just knocks the wind out of you. You know, like the legs on the shoulders takes him down just like somebody rolling you into the ground. He goes down, he knocks the wind out of him, he has to roll out of the ring. Red Shoes is not young. He wears red slippers and red socks, my man. You
are going for the Marvel No Prize on this one, nice man. How do you like that comic book reference? I get one in every once in a while.
Yeah.
Red Shoes was somehow bumped there, and House of Torture attacked, but they couldn't put Tama Tonga away. They began hitting each other with all their weapons, things going back and forth. Jado hit Evil with a cane, wrenches, and all that stuff. Red Shoes got bumped again. Rough night for him. Tama hit the TSD, but Togo pulled the ref out and then choked Tama Tonga with the Garrett. This thing is booked within an inch of its life. Narita then hit Tama Tonga with the push-up bar, got out of the ring. Everything is evil. And then that was the end of it there. Of course, we knew that Tama Tonga was going to have to drop this belt on the way out. It was a different situation than Okada, which we're going to get to. But he had to give this thing up. And so he had a feeling that Evil was going to win this thing. And he did. But boy, this was not a great match at all. It didn't really gel. It was a little clunky, I felt.
Yeah, I mean, the takeaways were Evil's the guy to be the guy until they figure out what they're going to do with the never open weight title. That's fine. The role is exactly the same. And, you know, the other thing is looking at out of this 2024 Hontai, you know, like they are trying to tell you at every corner, you know, Desperado is the face of Hontai and ELP and Hikuleo. And it is a super interesting dynamic of who they're putting front and center all of a sudden in this faction. 3 weeks ago, this was not who they were pushing as this, like, the lion mark, the shield of the lion mark. So I thought that was really interesting. I don't know if you got that. I thought that was an interesting takeaway, but the whole thing about just putting those guys as like the baby faces of all baby faces is super interesting to me.
They hammered that point home in Korakuen too, which we will get to a little bit later. Flaming Shark is here. He says, too bad Tama couldn't go out with an awesome match like the one he had with Shingo at Wrestle Kingdom. Agreed, yeah, but the way the House of Torture works and the way Evil works, we're just not going to get that, are we? And as Venkin says, now we get an Evil title reign with interference in every match.
I don't know. It might not be that long based off of some of the matches I've seen announced.
Yep, exactly. We'll see. But that's a good point that we're going to talk about that as we get to Korakuen, because we know the direction for the never openweight title going forward.
A little tease for later in the episode as we discuss what's down the line.
Yeah. And he said, Flaming Shark says, I wouldn't even be too surprised if Evil weren't the champion by the end of the New Beginning tour. Yeah, well, yeah. More to come later on in the program about that one. But it's
that's called a teaser, my friend.
We have had a pivot in the never openweight title picture. But that was that match, and I don't think we need to get into too much more.
It was representative of the entire show. A valiant effort, but it just didn't land with the audience, and the wrestlers were having an off night too.
Here's another one that didn't quite land either. The NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team title match was the semifinal, and that was the Gorillas of Destiny, Hikuleo, and El Phantasmo, who may have been under the weather. By the way, we found out he missed a Korakuen Hall show due to being sick. Chris Charlton, unfortunately, was not on the broadcast because he had the flu. So that's one of the things about a group of traveling show business folks. When you're packed into buses and locker rooms together, a bug can go around very quickly. So it was, he was in this match, Hikuleo and Phantasmo, and they defeated Chase Owens and Kenta in the semi-main. And this match was dull. It was a lot of stalling early on. It was a slow start. And that could be down to the one guy that does have a lot of energy being under the weather, perhaps. Hikuleo tagged in after ELP sold for a while, and he did have a rally. And that was the first real crowd response in this match, several minutes into it. It went a long time, 21-33. It was slow-paced. It was not exciting. And like I said, 21-33, and I didn't think this match picked up until they called the 20-minute mark. And finally, there were some big moves. Kenta missed a coup de grace off the top, ended up colliding with Chase. Hikuleo got a chokeslam. ELP couldn't quite get a CO2 on Chase. Wasn't a great match. Again, maybe the flu had something to do with it. But Guerrillas of Destiny defeated Bullet Club. So they still have both tag team titles, and they still have another match against Chase and Kenta later for the IWGP belts. This one did not make me all that excited for it, though.
Given what I saw later on in the tour, I was like, okay, I'm willing to call this just a bad night for everyone via sickness, malaise, sadness, whatever. But yeah, no, this wasn't good. And I'm just, let's call a spade a spade. Wasn't good.
And it's worth noting, too, this was almost the end of Tama Tonga's run in New Japan as well. So that's going to have an effect on Hikuleo and ELP and those guys that are friends with him as well. It's been totally overshadowed by Okada. My God. But
where do you even think he goes?
There are a lot of choices that besides, I mean, both, I actually think TNA might be the best spot.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking TNA might be the place for him right now.
MLW is always a possibility. TNA, I think, would pay better. And the other thing about TNA is they're actually on a bit of a roll right now, business wise. Things are pretty good there, and they are on an upswing. It's been a good 2023 was a good year for TNA, and they seem to have some interesting things cooking going forward. That might be a great spot for him to get the attention of the bigger companies. Should that come up later?
That is spot number one, I would say, for him. Do you think there is a place for him on Ring of Honor?
Perhaps, but at that point, you're basically in AEW anyway, if you're in Ring of Honor.
Sure.
But
he could be top higher on the card in Ring of Honor and do fine there. And if there is room in the AEW roster later on, it could end up being there. But, number one really does seem like TNA would be
it's a tough spot because I felt like if he left New Japan 6 months before or 6 months after Okada and Ospreay, that he would have a little bit more attention. But right now he's just a distant third in the free agent sweepstakes here. Of course, we know that Ospreay's already going to AEW. That one's not in doubt. But if you're AEW, you might get Okada. You might get Ospreay. All of a sudden, Tama Tonga isn't a very sexy pick. But like 6 months either direction, you might think, yeah, we could do something with that guy. But I think maybe TNA is a landing spot for a year or two.
I wonder if he had known that Okada was leaving, if he would have kept quiet and worked without a contract for a couple of months and then bounced out in like March or April. Yeah. And then, things would have maybe been a little bit dicier with the office the way doing it like that. At least at this way they could move forward at the new beginning of the tour. I don't know. I'm just spitballing because I wonder if you could do it all over again knowing that Okada was leaving rather than I'm going to go and then Okada's leaving too. Cool.
Whoops. Yeah. And Flaming Sharks is TNA or WWE probably. I don't see Tama going to AEW. Yeah, I really don't either.
They want somebody in the bloodline over in WWE.
He wouldn't be a bad pick for NXT, and I say this as a guy who's a good wrestler who could work with the younger guys. That's not a bad point. I don't really know if he'd be a WWE main roster guy right off the bat. Not to say he never could. But I don't see him as that kind of level of star. But again, he's got choice. He'll get work. He's a good wrestler.
Yeah. No.
But let's see what they have.
I wish him well.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Those guns are looking so good lately.
No, he's really good. Venkin mentions, why do they give Bullet Club 2 title matches for the different belts? Good question. I don't really understand that either. Why Chase and especially Chase and Kenta? I
suspect that some of those guys were not the ones that they intended to have matches with, and they are perhaps covering for other people that are not currently going to be having matches for those titles in tag divisions.
What are you talking about?
You got a bunch of War Dogs right now operating without contract. They might have thrown those in there, and there are other Bullet Club members, and it's not the Bullet Club, but there were other members of Bullet Club that you could throw in for tag title challenges as well. I know you got Ishimori involved in the match we're about to talk about.
Yeah, no, that's true. There are, but it does seem like an odd choice. That it's not like it's some awesome rivalry where we just want to see this match over and over again. Like we didn't even mind necessarily when they wrestled Bishamon again because the other matches were so good. But it's not like we're sitting there itching to see these guys wrestle Chase Owens and Kenta in a best of 7 or you know what I mean?
Well, I guess the best way I could put it is at Battle in the Valley, it was Coughlin and Connors. So at some point during this tour, if they wanted to do Maloney and Kidd in a tag title match for the Strong as well, and they lose, that was certainly an option they could do because they just did the other one at Battle in the Valley. I was just thinking of that and wondering why they didn't do that if they were going to go back to the well and Kenta and Chase Owens 3 or 4 times.
Venkin has a question here that you might know, Jeremy. So I need to ask, is Brian facing Suzuki's partner from the World Tag League this Saturday, or am I wrong? Yuji Nagata?
Yeah, Bryan Danielson is facing Yuji Nagata, and Chris Charlton explained on X/Twitter that this is a spiritual response to Zack Sabre Jr.'s Tiger Mask match, both setting up their bout with each other on February 11th. So Zack had his Tiger Mask match. Brian will be facing Yuji Nagata at Collision, and Charlton explained that both of these matches are to set the stage for their opponents facing each other on February 11th.
All right. Well, I did see that once again, Tony Khan flew over Minoru Suzuki to lose on AEW. He must be the most expensive jobber in AEW right now. They bring him in from across the pond all the time. And the fans must be thinking like, oh, I guess he's going to lose this one too. Because really, to AEW fans, if you don't follow New Japan, Minoru Suzuki is like this old guy that throws some forearms and then loses.
He's the only old man on the mountain that comes down to kick some ass. It doesn't win a fight, but he still kicks some ass.
But does he? It's like, I don't know. I don't understand.
I didn't watch the match last night. I hadn't gotten there yet. It's been a week.
No, I usually fast forward Adam Copeland. So I don't know.
But that's the deal with the Yuji Nagata match.
Okay, well, there you go. All right, back to the show. So before that one, if you can tell that we were annoyed by this show, so then we had the 10-minute ring fit match for the KOPW type. Boy, was this a whack job match. So
you knew exactly the type of carny crap this was going to be when you said every 3 minutes of a 10-minute match.
But this was absolutely bozo as far as the booking goes. So let's talk about this thing. So as it starts, I'm thinking, okay, this isn't so bad. But there was a rule in this one, and I'm not going to tell you now because they didn't tell us. So I'm going to take you through this match the same way they took us through it. And
oh my God, I forgot how this ended. Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. And Colin said he hasn't seen any of these things. So I'm glad. I mean, I think he knows who won, but I'm just going to take you through this. So Ishimori and Okan, 3-minute periods between the 3-minute periods for 10-minute match. So there'll be 3 of those. At the 3, 6, and 9-minute marks, you do 30 seconds of high intensity training. Okay, it's creative. I haven't seen it before. I'll give him that, right? And then, as it says, whoever has the belt at the end wins. Okay, so fine. Ishimori sold for the first 3 minutes, so you figure it's like whoever has the most falls, or whoever has the last one, because the scramble is whoever has the last fall when time runs out. Okay, fine. None of those. Listen to this crap. Ishimori sold for the first 3 minutes of this thing. Just ran, but he did run around a lot, and he made Okan chase him. So the whole thing was that Ishimori was trying to blow up Great Okan because he's in better shape. After that, they did about 30 seconds of burpees and some other calisthenics. They did these 30-second periods, always with Ishimori finishing before Okan and showing that he can do it easily, whereas Okan's struggling. Okan played blown up, but he still controlled a lot of the next period. The next one was push-ups, crunches, and squats. And I'm about to cough, pardon me.
The push-ups and squats, they were generous in his execution. Ishimori had it handled. Okan, his squats and stuff.
Oh boy,
the form could be worked on.
Okan played it up like he was gassed. So the last 30-second period, this is the 9-minute mark of a 10-minute match, was lunges, mountain climbers, and some jumps. Both are now wiped out, but Okan did his so poorly he had to redo them. So the whole story of this match is that Okan's just a wet noodle at this point. He's exhausted. And then there's 1 minute left in the match. Now, there have not been any falls in this match at all at this point. Ishimori snuck the belt into the ring. That's going to be important. and he puts the bone lock on. He tried to hit Okan with it. It didn't work. He gets the bone lock on. Okan powers out of that and hit the eliminator. When he hits the eliminator, he's dog exhausted, falls over, and lands on the belt.
On the belt, you say?
Which counts as having the belt when the 10 minutes are up, and he won the King of Pro Wrestling title because he passed out on the physical title belt. That's what having the belt. Did not score a fall. There were no falls in the match. He landed on the belt, and therefore he is the new King of Pro Wrestling. This was stupid. And this was Shawn Michaels NXT levels of dipshittery as far as booking goes.
Wow.
And this is awful. And so he won the thing, and I like Okan, and I think he can do interesting things with this belt, but for them to do it this way was just asinine. I just haven't beat the buzzer with the eliminator or whatever. And not only that, this wasn't explained well at all, to the point that I don't think Walker and Chris Charlton had any idea what was happening.
No, I don't think anybody did. Bro, I got up off my couch and the bell rang. I'm like, oh, I guess Ishimori wins this match. I didn't check any spoilers before or anything. And I'm walking in the other room with my headphone on and just grabbing something. And all of a sudden, Walker Stewart is talking about, wait, I guess Okan is the champion now. And I'm like, excuse me, what? And then they like tepidly explain that, well, apparently because he was actually touching the belt at the 10-minute mark, the belt is now his.
Ugh.
And we're all like, I think every single person who heard that in their ear just kind of stopped and said, what?
Yeah.
Realized it was the King of Pro Wrestling title. Realized it really doesn't matter. Realized that it is now in the possession of Great Okan, who's been chasing it for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And this is how he wins it. Let me tell you how much this does not matter by everything that you saw in the preceding 10 minutes. So none of this matters. Stupid as shit. And they are telling you without telling you. They're not really caring about King of Pro Wrestling going into 2024.
Such a wackadoo thing today. Let's see. The Venkin asked a good question, though. Would a bull rope match have been better? No. Bull rope matches are usually rotten.
That would have been JBL and Eddie Guerrero.
Oh, God. JBL. Oh, man. One of the single worst people ever to main event in pro wrestling. Flaming Shark says, this is one of the funniest finishes I've ever seen. The fact that this was a finish in New Japan, of all places. Wild. Yeah, this is like, again, and I mentioned the Shawn Michaels thing just because, and I know he's taking strays, as they mentioned right here, but his booking in NXT is I know he might not be the guy that's writing it, but he's in charge of NXT.
Booking is 90s WWF, bro.
Yeah, and it's like that kind of dumb shit where instead of Last Man Standing, where the person like the one person leaned on one of the announcer's chairs and it rolled out from under him and they landed and lost because of that. Just stupid. Like
I will say there are times where that stuff is super awesome and they have managed to have a couple moments where it's like, you know what? Through all this crap, this kind of makes it worth it. Kind of like that when Trick Williams won that Eliminator Challenge thing where he the timing, they pulled all that off in like 1 minute. Like honestly, for all the stupid shit that they do, the strays that he's getting today, I gotta give more credit on that one.
Shark says this match epitomizes how little of a shit NJPW cares about this belt. New Japan would never have done anything remotely similar to this with any other belt. Literally,
Shark, we're on the same wavelength here, my man.
Yeah. John Rock, the Eddie JBL Eddie Bull Rope match was awesome. That match will be as good as Eddie allows it to be, but JBL is one of the worst that ever was.
If we could have gotten anything like that in this King of Pro Wrestling match between Ishimori and Great Okan, which is kind of similar in the athletic department.
There's no way to have a worse. There's no way to Venkin. There's no way to have a worse bull rope match than the EC3 one. That's a good point. It would have been better than that. That's a good point.
Is there anything else noteworthy on this show that we have covered?
Let me look at my notes here. I did want to mention this, that Okan has since in backstage comments mentioned a couple of things he would like to do with the KOPW belt, which is defend it at house shows. He mentioned defend it against local guys and have rules that reflect local values, like have rules that mean something to the area in which the match is taking place, which could be interesting. Maybe we'll see.
When I'm looking through these notes real quick, I got one question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think that this show really only hinged on once Okada showed up and the audience got to see him in Nagoya. They didn't care about anything else.
Not a whole lot else. It was the first show since he made his announcement, so that was a big deal there. And we'll talk about that one. And Colin said he'd like to get rid of the KOPW title altogether. I don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, I understand. There was a buzz in the crowd when Okada came out for his match, and it was the preview of TMDK and Zack Sabre Jr. against the never openweight 6-man champs and Togi Makabe. It was a big positive reaction to him. It was a very warm reaction. There was a buzz in the crowd when his music hit. And they also understood how to work it. Of course, I mean, it's Tanahashi, Ishii, Makabe, and Okada. These guys know what they're doing. So they made the crowd wait about 5 minutes, a full 5 minutes before Okada tagged in. And after a shine sequence for everyone, where everybody kind of gets a move in one by one, Zack tapped out Makabe with a leg lock. And Makabe doesn't tap out very much. So a little shine there for Zack. And then Okada even choked up a little bit while leaving, which would become a theme to the week. Even though his team lost the match, they played his music. He got in the ring and bowed to the Nagoya crowd. And it was a little warm moment there with him and the fans there in the show. And there were 2,710 at this one. It's right in the middle for that building, Dolphins Arena. They drew 2,190 for the New Japan Cup this past year. So 600 more than that, but they drew 3,500 for the G1. So about 800 less than that, right in the middle between the G1 and the New Japan Cup.
Yeah, so it looks like we had a couple of House of Torture Hontai tags. We had the Just Five Guys and LIJ, ever living, ever dying feud continuing on into its infancy. And then we had War Dogs and United Empire just kind of heating up their feud. The whole deal with this is we're having a lot of showdowns, and the only guy in United Empire not around to really heat this up is Will Ospreay.
Yeah. And it was a good match, by the way. That 8-man tag that Okada was in, fairly good. I mean, they were all being very careful. The other match that did end up mattering, although we didn't know it at the time, was Sho and Yoshinobu Kanemaru wrestling Master Wato and El Desperado.
Right.
It was all to set up what were supposed to be special challenge matches at Korakuen Hall. However, and in the end, it was a wrench shot from Sho onto Master Wato for the heel victory. That didn't matter as much as in the match, it looks like Master Wato tore his ACL. And
so we have a sibling show on the Fight Game Media Network called The Boom. And Kevin Ely and James McDaniel take their time at some option to disparage one Master Wato when they see fit. And I was listening to their show on Tuesday morning, as I want to do after they recorded, and they managed to throw in another little dig at Master Wato. It's fine. You can not like Master Wato, but as I'm hearing this, I'm like, I wonder how they're going to feel when they find out that he tore his ACL, and they're like, yeah, it's not good. They're like, so hopefully they'll give a little love to Master Wato, because it is always in good fun with these guys.
Yeah.
But I got to inform them, because they're not actively watching New Japan. It's just a gimmick to make fun of Wato. And I heard that. I'm like, oh, Wato deserves a little bit more love than that, my friend. Yeah. We're going to give him the love that he deserves. We love Wato here.
Unfortunately, he's going to be out most of 2024 now.
Maybe he'll be back for probably New Year Dash next year.
Yeah, I mean, he might manage to come back at a little bit late. It's usually about 9 months or so, and maybe he can get a little bit of a few reps in.
I just wonder what he would do. Like he comes in around there, Super Junior Tag League. He might be able to make it to Super Junior Tag League, but if he's not, it's just like bring him in after. Nice little surprise for.
Well, he could have a tour like he did this past year, where he was the extra guy in the preview matches, and it could just get him back up to speed, shake the rust off. It might be a way to do it. And Benkin mentions ACL injuries are the worst. Yes, and what we're seeing, just a rash of them in pro wrestling lately. And the other thing about it is, thankfully, the surgeries that repair them have improved a lot in the last 20 years, and guys are able to come back and have a strong, men and women, pardon me, I did guys as a general term. I shouldn't use a gender specific one. Wrestlers are able to come back and have strong careers afterwards. It's better than it used to be, where if you messed up your ACL, you're probably going to be in a hell of a lot of pain the rest of your career.
It does seem like the ACL injury is common nowadays, though.
Yeah, I wonder why that is. Someone should do a study on that, but it's pro wrestling, so it doesn't matter, right? It's one of those things. Yeah. So, all right, that was that one, and let's move on from Nagoya because it was a little bit of a rough show. And yeah, Venkin mentions that women get them surprisingly more. It seems that way. A lot of people are wondering because the NXT women seem to be getting them one after another. Could be a coincidence. Sometimes these things happen in bunches, but a lot of people are wondering what
weird narrative though, because Dakota Kai and Charlotte got ACL injuries right in the middle of that too.
Yeah, well, I mean, Tegan Knox, Nikita Lyons, who else? Cora Jade, over and over again. And it does make you wonder about the training there. If maybe there's a drill they're doing that might be putting too much strain on it or something like that. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not in there, so I'm not going to accuse anybody in NXT of doing anything wrong, but it does seem to be an odd coincidence.
You know,
they had another event.
They want our record to be healthy, you know?
Yes, they had another event in Shiga that was not televised. That was all preview tags. That was on the 21st. And then after that, we headed to Korakuen Hall. Thankfully, Jeremy, everyone was in a better place as we got into this show. Although Wato came out at the beginning of it to apologize to fans that he was hurt and he couldn't wrestle. They also did an angle with Sho where he was very carefully attacking Wato. Which you can tell that injury was very legit as Sho was very, very careful in attacking the knee.
Sad.
And
when he came out and they announced it, I heard all that. I'm like, oh, bummer. Wato, he's solid. Like he's not the mainstay. He's not going to be the front and center of the division. But the dude is solid, and he's come a long way.
And the Despo Wato story still had some legs to it. I'd like to see how those guys were going to interact now that he was the champion, yet he has an ally in Wato, but also a contender and all that. It's unfortunately, we're not going to see any of that in 2024. And he's the defending champion won't be in Super Juniors. That's always unfortunate. So, yeah. But we'll go from the top down in this one as well, because it goes right into the thing. We were going to have the special challenge match between Wato and Sho. We didn't get that, and we head right to the main event, which is the junior heavyweight title match between Desperado and Kanemaru. So it was all Kanemaru early, as you would imagine. Desperado had a little work to do here to convince the fans he might lose. Kanemaru was almost bullying Desperado here. And it's interesting because, of course, they were in Suzuki-gun together. They've teamed together quite a bit. There's a lot of history between the two, longtime partners. And Desperado's strategy seemed to be about clamping on the numero dos, that stretch muffler hold he has. Desperado did get that. And when he did, it seemed to panic everybody because they brought out House of Torture. And Narita, however, came into the ring, which meant we were going to get Shota. So what we saw here is House of Torture invades, but Hantai answers. Again, similar to what we saw back in Nagoya. So Narita flushes out Umino. Tanahashi and Taguchi also come out to fight off.
Tanahashi came out on Desperado's behalf. Like,
another numero dos. Yeah, that was turned. There was a spot here that I love, by the way. There was another numero dos that was turned into a Kanemaru pinning combination. And that was a really good looking near fall. It almost looked like the baby faces had fought off House of Torture at this point, just kind of brawled up the aisle and out. But when he gets numero dos again, Evil and Dick Togo came out, pulled the ref out of the ring. That brings out Tama Tonga, and he runs off Dick Togo. Evil tries to give Tama Tonga a low blow, but Tonga catches his arm. Desperado then clocks Evil with a low blow in a really nice spot that got a big pop. That was a lot of fun. They hit a magic killer on him right there. So Tama Tonga may have lost the never open weight title.
Evil sold the hell of that magic killer too.
Yes, he did. And then he was also going to go out a hero here. So Kanemaru tried to do the Suntory surprise, spit the whiskey. Desperado avoided that. Finally got the numero dos with no House of Torture members left to help him. And that got the tap out. And they transitioned immediately into the next thing because Sho, who I'm assuming was going to probably beat Wato underneath, but we don't know. Sho attacked Desperado afterwards to set himself up as the next challenger. Now that I mention it, that could have gone either way, and Sho was just going to slide in for Wato.
Yeah, I think this was going to be the natural pivot, that he was going to beat Wato, and then after the match, the whole deal. This seems like the direction that they were always going to go. Here's a couple things that I really liked.
Let's hear it.
The style of the junior heavyweight title match has completely shifted from the Hiromu match to a more hard-hitting, fast, frenetic, still acrobatic, but more contact-based wrestling, which is a little bit more my speed.
Okay.
And the last 2 minutes of this match, from the point that Kanemaru had his Centauri whiskey bottle to Desperado hitting the Pinche Loco to turning it into like a pin attempt, Desperado then getting out, punching him in the face, and then putting on the Pinche Loco.
Numero dos.
The numero dos. Sorry, thank you. Just great stuff. Like speed, brutality, just all the things that you're looking for. That as much as I love Hiromu, and he is hypnotic in the ring, there are times where I don't see that hard hitting style from him that I see in Desperado, and I'm here for it.
Well, that's one of the great things about the rivalry, right? Like they're very different workers. And I agree with a lot of that. And so let's get some comments here before we move on. Flaming Shark says, what I saw from 2 Korakuen Hall shows were solid. Kanemaru and Desperado was pretty fun. Yeah, Kanemaru is a great worker, and so is Desperado. And they know each other back to front. So it really worked out well. And Venkin says, now we can give Despy a very long reign. I hope so. I think he has earned that. And I think he has the crowd support here. I don't think it's just kind of a consolation prize or a lifetime achievement. I really think the crowd's ready for Desperado to lead that division. Shark says Tanahashi was running faster than the speed of light. He must have been running so fast I missed that. But
I was so over the moon to see Tanahashi with the endorsement of Desperado as a face of Hontai.
And Shark says, I do like the overarching story of these New Beginning shows of everyone trying to stop House of Torture. I do like it too. I think it's nice every once in a while when the baby faces help each other out, because there's so many times when they illogically don't, for people that are supposed to be selfless and generous, they tend to ignore when someone else is being attacked for dramatic purposes. Venkin mentions
between the tag, if it's not the tag titles and the main IWGP title, I think every other title is up for grabs before the New Japan Cup.
Yeah. And Venkin says he expected the surprise to work on his former partner. Exactly. Hubris, I tell you, hubris gets the heels every time. So good match. And like I said, it'll also be good if Show is allowed to wrestle and they don't overbook it, and they will. But when it's in the ring, Show's a hell of a good wrestler. And I think he'll have a good match with Desperado when the time comes.
All right. So now we got this one. We'll just jump to that.
Yeah, so we had the LIJ versus Just 5 Guys match here. This was good, nothing wrong, but there was also nothing new. We've seen these preview tags to death. Taichi pinned Bushi after a super kick. So, yeah, I mean, did you have any notes on this other than I just feel like we've seen this match 20 times?
I'm just doing my diligence of running through these cards properly because everyone is listening and wants to know when if we skip over a match, somebody might get mad.
All right, before that one, we had Shota Umino, Tama Tonga, and Togi Makabe. They defeated Evil, Ren Narita, and Yujiro. Oh, no, that's not true, is it? No. It was the heels won that one. Wasn't it a push-up bar shot on Makabe to win?
I think so.
Yeah.
Let me double check.
WrestlingData.com failing me. Let's see. And before that, we had TMDK. This was, again, the preview tag that was supposed to be in Nagoya.
Ren got it on Togi.
I thought so. So it was Fujita, Nichols, Haste, and Sabre. They defeated Okada, Ishii, Tanahashi, and Honma. Now, this is where we need to start talking about Okada and Korakuen.
Oh my God.
The big stuff was on the second show. A huge ovation for Okada again when he came out. And because they were setting up the never open weight tag, the next night, Fujita Okada stuff was really good.
Mm-hmm.
It was a strong match, really good Fujita rally. They did everything they could to make him look good. And Zach ended up tapping out Honma with an arm bar. But one of those things where there was a buzz in the crowd and big cheers for Kazuchika Okada when he came out. Now, because he had the match the next night, he didn't do any big post-match, bows or speeches.
He did one, though. He came out and he did a little bit.
You could sense that the crowd was really the crowd felt something very important was going on. Mm-hmm. And there were more people up in the crow's nest in the standing room section than there used to be, and Korakuen Hall was packed. They were going to make sure that anyone that could get in there to see Okada, they were going to do their best to send him off. So a lot of good vibes between the crowd and the champ, or the former champ there.
Everything about this, just sometimes when you're watching a match, you can just feel like a low level hum when you're watching it. Just like you're taking it something that you know is special. And these last 5 shows, this one, the next one, and the 3 that he has in February, all have the markings of just tremendously special scenarios. Mm-hmm. And even though Nagoya was like sad and there was like a malaise and bittersweet, Korakuen refused to behave that way. They were going to shower him, and they did, with praise and attention and chants. The Okada chant that I heard in Korakuen, I feel like I have not heard for anybody in a very long time. Like just sustained, just determined, sustained, and passionate. And it was just like, this is why New Japan app is made the way it is. So you can just go watch this match and just enjoy it and then put it down if that's all you want to watch. This is worth just watching and enjoying.
It's all hitting home with Okada as well. You can sense that he's a very emotional guy here in a way that he isn't normally. And I'll tell you what, we're going to get to tomorrow because the emotions on at that show were pretty fierce. Venkin has a question though. Is it fair to say this entire Just 5 Guys feud is just filler to get further? Yeah, I don't see Sonata winning that rematch at all. And I think this is just a way to occupy everybody until they move on to other things. But Just 5 Guys.
I can see storylines coming out of Just 5 Guys not succeeding and LIJ and stuff going into the New Japan Cup. But at the same time, would you rather it was Evil and House of Torture right now? Because those are your 2 options.
Yeah, that's very true. So, the matches aren't bad. No. The matches between Just 5 Guys and LIJ aren't bad. They just aren't real fresh. Now, the one thing that they've tried to do to keep things fresh is have Uemura and Tsuji going after each other all the time. And that has added a little bit of spice to it, I have to say. That wasn't so bad. And we saw more of that here on the next day, too. Anything else from the January 23rd Korakuen Hall?
Yes.
Show?
I want to talk about the reaction to Kenta.
Okay.
Did you see the reaction to Kenta? The crowd going nuts for him in this place?
Haven't seen him in Korakuen in months.
It was amazing. I was like, what the hell is happening here? Like,
well, it's the thing. How can we miss you if you never go away, right? Well, he went away for a few months and now everybody was happy to see him again. Kenta's a funny guy. He's legitimately funny. And when he did the whole little blushing like before he tagged in, I pop for that. I cracked me up. I know his body will no longer let him do the kind of matches that he became famous for doing. Yeah. That Kenta's gone, unfortunately, with all the shoulder problems and everything else. But the guy has a ton of personality and he's funny. I wish he could work like he used to, but the way he interacted with the crowd was enjoyable. He
has a place in this New Japan, and that's fine. It's like as the Defy world champion, constantly defending around the world, it appears. There's a nice spot for him here in New Japan. I just thought it was worth noting because holy crap, that reaction to him just caught me completely off guard. Every so often in New Japan, crowd will just go nuts for somebody. I'll be like, where the hell did that come from?
My other note is if you are cherry picking and you don't have time, and I understand, to watch all of these events, one match that you should always, so far, go out of your way to see is any preview tag multi-man match between the United Empire and the War Dogs. These matches are great. Yeah. Like these guys are gelling wonderfully with one another. There's outstanding chemistry. And while these matches aren't long and maybe canon wise, we're just kind of filling time until they all clash in that cage in Osaka on February 11th. Each one of these has been a really enjoyable wrestling match. And they just seem to meld together beautifully. I'm enjoying every single time these two factions get in the ring against each other.
You know what they're doing well, Steven?
What's that?
They're building to a cage match exceptionally well.
They are, yeah. For a company that doesn't do them.
The stakes and the aggression is rising with each matchup, and they are wanting to tear each other apart, and the crowd is wanting to see them tear each other apart. And it's like, oh my gosh, we're in the middle of pro wrestling. And it is.
We are, and it's a company that doesn't do cage matches, and they're building cage matches better than the companies that do. Yeah. So that's worth noting. Flaming Shark says, if anything, Kenta being more limited as a wrestler compared to back in the day, along with him joining Bullet Club, unlocked another level of charisma. He's a treasure. That's an interesting point because before he could just go on as being a wrestling machine. And since he can't do that, he's had to let his personality out. Turns out the guy's funny as hell.
Yeah.
So I like that. Benkin says, I'm really interested in where we go now. It's a lot of new frontiers going on here. Dunstan's here. Good to see you, Dunstan. Late for the show. I'm glad you're here, though. Just want to say the Fujita is a future star. Yep. Ghetto is teasing Gabe turning on Finlay. We're going to get to that in a second. You're jumping ahead. And Okada's goodbye made me cry. Well, it would take a hard man to not feel emotional after that. And Flaming Shark mentions the United Empire and the War Dogs are both awesome. And it feels like they have heat. It's great. Yeah, it does feel like they genuinely dislike each other. And the styles were Hanare in there with the War Dogs, with the way Hanare wrestles, works perfectly. Mm-hmm. And Cobb, Cobb wasn't always there this past week, because he's traveling around and things, but he works with him. Callum Newman has come miles as far as working this style, and he's a little bit bigger than he was when he first got here. And of course, Catch 22 is one of the best teams in the world. So,
and I'm exceptionally happy that Great O'Con is not in this cage match.
Yeah, well, I like O'Con better than you do, but
he's not the guy to have in that cage match.
I suppose not.
Cobb, Hanare, Catch 22, and Osprey.
Well, as they say too, there will be blood in that match. That match is they're going to need it. They're going to need a new mat.
There shall be flesh grinded on steel.
Well, they're doing all kinds of stuff that they got to that on the 24th. So I guess should we just go ahead and go to the 24th then, or is there anything else from the 23rd?
Absolutely, let's go to the 24th.
We're way ahead of schedule. This is so strange for us.
So let me tell you something about this. Back after World Tag League, we talked about whether this match should be on Wrestle Kingdom. And I was staunchly against the idea because I did not want their first matchup to be relegated to 10 minutes at the bottom of a Wrestle Kingdom card. I wanted their first match to be a main event banger afterwards at one of the tour shows. And you know what we got here, Steven?
What did we get?
We got a main event banger between these two in Korakuen Hall on January 24th.
I wouldn't have minded if they were on January 4th just to give it like a little taster like they did Tsuji and Uemura, but this worked out. This worked out fine.
Great.
And we're going to see about 100 of these matches in big situations over the next few years. But this is a very, very, very good sign. John LaRocca has another take here. It's a mistake not having O'Con in. Japanese fans will be a bit more invested if he was than a match with all Gaijin.
I think it's kind of.
I don't know if I agree there. I understand what he's saying, but
the thing about this is, I think this is a play for the dominance of the top Gaijin stable, and there may be stories coming out with the United Empire afterwards. Yeah. Be it Riddle, be it just kind of a deconstruction. Because if Osprey is gone, there's either a vacuum or somebody like taking the role or whatnot. But
TJP is clearly angling for it, and the story might be that he doesn't get it. There's a lot of things like that.
And the idea that we're all kind of working with, I assume, is that this is to set up the Bullet Club as the dominant faction moving forward. Osprey, his whole group takes the loss, and then we move forward with this. That's not necessarily for sure. They could do United Empire and then elongate this whole thing even further. But I think the goal is to establish one of these factions as the dominant Gaijin faction rather than trying to put O'Con or one of the other people in there where all of a sudden it's not about that.
And I'm not detecting a lack of heat on this. I think the crowd is excited about this match, even without O'Con. The other thing I wanted to mention too, and you have to temper this a little bit because the final, quote unquote, final, we'll see as time goes on. Okada Tanahashi match has been added to that cards, but Eddie on Arena is damn near sold out. There's only a few I checked the website there, and there are only a handful of tickets out there left for this one. So that building's going to be full. Now, again, Okada's last match.
Windy City, my friend.
They'll have more people than that. It'll have more people than that. But Windy City Riot also they put more tickets on, they go. But the point is that I think the crowd was excited for this one before. It is tempered by, you got to say that Okada and Tanahashi would probably, you could probably put that show at Osaka Joe Hall now, the bigger building, and it would do well. Too late to do that. But this is a big show. But I don't detect a lack of enthusiasm for that match, even though there's not a native Japanese in it.
That I quietly became just a huge show. Do you want to do a live show after that one?
On the 11th?
Or the 12th.
May the 12th. I was going to say it's Super Bowl Sunday. I don't know if that's going to work out.
We'll do the 12th.
Well, we're hosting a party here for Super Bowl Sunday. It might be a little
You
wild.
don't want to do a show on that day, but we can talk. Nobody wants to talk about New Japan, but we can talk about it on the 12th if you want.
12th we might do. Yeah, that one might do. Right. Let's see. We'll get to these here. Venkin mentions that there's no way Ospreay would pick TJP over Jeff Cobb. Yeah, storyline wise, that might be a tough sell, but remember that Ospreay's not picking. But Flaming Shark says Narita and Umino was great. Best match I watched this morning, besides finally watching the Shuri Mayu match from January 4th. That was a hell of a match. Boy, that was so good. And then Flaming Shark says, I'm sure Tanahashi Okada added to it. Big part of why the people are coming is for the cage match. And of course, right, ZSJ and Bryan Danielson. So that's
I'm not underselling Okada's last singles match with Tanahashi in Japan for the foreseeable future. That is something that will get people to show up.
That's a big show now. Yeah. I mean, it was a big show before. It's a monster show now.
It is an absolutely big show. Any other notes about Ren Narita and Shota Umino? I think we got to bury the...
Sure. We haven't even talked about the match yet. Let's get to it. So this one was quite the wild main event right here. It was 33 minutes and 45 seconds. Didn't seem like it was that long, but it was. Umino jump-started it, as he should. I like when guys act out of character when they're pissed. That should be the way. He should have worked this like he couldn't wait to get his hands on Narita. Of course, he's run in on Narita a whole bunch of times. It made perfect sense. He didn't just sit there and wait for the ring announcements. He's like, just let me tear this guy a new one. Early on, it was actually a little bit slow paced because they knew they were going long, but it worked. And what I mean by that is, while it was slow paced, there was a lot of trash talk between moves, a lot of periods of selling by Umino. The facial expressions were on point. There was I'm going to take my time and torture you aspect to Narita's work. And Umino's selling, and these guys looked angry at each other. To me, it worked. Jeremy, what'd you think before we get into the details?
The energy between them felt genuine. I know it's all an act. These guys are all friends with each other and all that, but holy crap. They laid into each other hard. Going into it, you felt the energy. When Shota ran through him and threw him into the ringside barrier right out the gate, and it was just like he launched into him. That was one of those moments like, oh man, they're going a million miles an hour. I think there was a ring rope run where Ren threw Shota into the rope and then tried to do a kick, but Shota ran past him, and Ren tried to do a clothesline, but Shota was so fast on the return that Ren barely had time to turn around and just take the lariat, I think, that Shota had on him. And it was just, they were going so fast at points, and the intensity was so good.
It's a way that you only hit guys you like that hard in wrestling, right? If you actually don't like the other person you're in the ring with, you can be professional, but that level of trust isn't there. Like, a lot of the stiffest matches are between guys that kind of like each other and they can trust each other. Like, let's lay these in. It'll be fun.
I don't think I've ever seen a spot where, and somebody can probably tell me if they've seen it before, but in Korakuen Hall, when Shota put the table over the steps.
Oh, I know. Let's get to that. Let's not jump to it. It was a lot of fun. So at the 15-minute mark, Umino got pissed off and just began walking through Narita's forearms. And then he started rallying, almost the way Ishii does it, where he just says, not selling anymore. Screw this. They fought their way into the orange seats. This is setting up just so much fun. Something I actually had never seen. And I was thinking about this. I have probably watched more matches from Korakuen Hall than any other single building in all of wrestling. Like the studio in Atlanta, Memphis, Madison Square Garden. Those are the ones I've probably seen the most matches. In addition, like Notre Dame.
Korakuen Hall's getting up there for me, man.
I think I probably, over the years, since I was a tape trader and all, I probably watched more matches from Korakuen Hall than any other building. Never seen what they were about to do. He carried a table into the orange seats, which again, I don't see very often. No. And then hit Narita with it. Someone's going to probably tell me where they've done it before, but I don't know. Then he took that table and set it up as a bridge between the handrail, not the handrails, but the steps, the concrete barrier, the concrete that
hold that stabilized the stairs against the rest of the area.
And then so he sets that up as a bridge. Then he powerbombed Narita through that table. And then Ren took it a step further by tumbling down the concrete steps all the way to the lobby. Just a great spot.
They have this spot where the camera's at the bottom and Ren just laying there. And you just see his elbow start to dribble blood from the impact of rolling down the stairs. And then Shota just casually just walks out. I'm like, no, I'm not done with you yet.
No. I'm not done beating your ass. And just cool spot. Chance for Umino going all through the arena. Later on, they fought their way back, and there was another table, and Ren gave him the overhead suplex, the overhead belly to belly through the table on the outside. That was about at the 25-minute mark. More big moves after that. They just start hitting each other with big stuff. And also Ren was working toward getting sleepers on Umino. Dick Togo came out, of course. It's House of Torture, right? Red Shoes was bumped, of course. It's House of Torture. Beatdown came on Umino, including the big Dick Togo crotch chop. And then at 30 minutes, the lights go out. Ooh. And when the lights come back up, Tama Tonga has appeared back in the ring. He runs off through the House of Torture. Desperado comes back out, and then Tama Tonga hits a gun stun on Evil. Desperado hits a Pinche Loco on Show. Umino and Narita trade near falls, and they try to get sleepers. And then Umino finally has had enough. I've stands all I can stands, and I can't stands no more. Umino hits a spinning Death Rider for 2, Blaze Blade, and then a Death Rider for a decisive victory here. And so for now, Shota Umino has vanquished Ren Narita and has gotten the big victory, won a Korakuen Hall main event. The crowd was going crazy for this. They loved it. And then afterwards on the microphone, Tama Tonga said his goodbyes because it's the end of his run in New Japan. And his last words to Shota Umino is, go get that never open weight title back. And Umino says, yes, sir. So there you have it. After this, he has run through Ren Narita, the number 2 guy in House of Torture, and now he's ready to go after number 1. So the feud going forward for Evil is trying to keep that never open weight title away from a really good Shota Umino who has a lot of goodwill and momentum right now. Yeah. This was terrific.
Got to get me a shirt that says Shota Umino and the Heroes of Hontai.
Let's get to some comments, though. Anything else you want to mention on this before we get to comments?
I have to say that this was a very important match for these two.
Yeah.
And a very important match for New Japan. As much as Okada leaving is really important for New Japan, the fact that these guys can have this level of match at this stage of their career makes me feel like putting my confidence in them and Yuya and Desperado and Yoda and Hiromu is not a bad decision at all. This was fantastic, and it just made me even more confident that the future is going to be fine.
And then we had Flaming Shark says, I really like Umino's facials. He's got a disappointed face that reminds me of his dad. It was pretty great. This match had time to breathe and hit high gear when it was ready. And, this Shark said, Ren had to do the Mayu tumble. And too bad we didn't have more stairs. Yeah, that's true. And then Dunstan says going after the Never Belt is a smart move for Shota, not only to rejuvenate the title, but also elevate Shota if he has an exciting long reign. Duncan mentions everyone is sick of House of Interference, House of Interference, House of Torture Interference. They should be the House of Interference. Well, that's the storyline now, is that everybody is fed up with it. And of course, as Shark says, that implies that people weren't sick of it already. And Duncan mentions it was a Dead Rider. Yep, you're right. It was. One of those was a Dead Rider in there. That is true. And then Shark says Evil Shota and Desperado Show are nice additions to the February 3rd Sapporo card, along with Riddle and Tanahashi. Looks like a pretty good card. Yeah, well, I hope it will be. And so we had that, and that was a really strong ending. And that wasn't even the most emotional thing in the show, because we had some other stuff here. The never open weight 6-man title match. So this is the one where has been moved forward. This was originally going to be in Osaka. Moved it up to be Okada's last match at Korakuen Hall as a New Japan wrestler, contracted wrestler. Okada, Ishii, and Tanahashi, the 3 Hall of Famers, against TMDK, Fujita, Mikey Nichols, and Shane Haste. It went 22 minutes and 15 seconds. It was fantastic. Big ovation for Okada again. Chants for him right off the bat. Loud, unanimous Okada, Okada during the whole introductions, and you could see that it was having its effect on him. But the crowd was into this entire match, Jeremy. We got some Fujita chants when Ishii had him in a Boston Crab. This match, Nichols and Haste are made men. We know TMDK is great. This match was all about shining up Kosei Fujita.
Right.
Even though it was Okada's last match, and he did get the final say in it, and we'll talk about that. But Fujita was made to look like a superstar here.
Yes.
They really loved it. And the crowd was into it, and you could tell that everybody was having a good time with it. Fujita actually reversed a Tanahashi dragon screw into one of his own.
Mm-hmm.
It was all about the vets making him look good. There were Ishii chants as well after he kicked out of a tank buster. I love TMDK's power bomb into a superplex spot. They hit that on Ishii. That's one of my favorite things in wrestling now. In the end, it came down to Okada and Fujita. We had a little bit of the Okada, get off my lawn, Okada here. Fujita actually collapsed while running the ropes, and Okada had a little bit of a smirk, like, yeah, I see what you got. But then Fujita mounted a comeback. And after that, we really got fun. The crowd was hot when Fujita got the advantage. And instead of pie facing him, where you put your hand on the guy and just shove his head back, he was pie footing Okada when Okada was on the mat. And Okada just had this look like, you little punk son of a run. It was great. And Fujita hit the German with a bridge for 2. He ducked a Rainmaker, but then ran into the Okada dropkick. Okada hit 2 short arm clothesline, but Fujita ducked the Rainmaker and got an Okada roll with the deep bridge for a very scary 2 count at the 20-minute mark that had some people in the crowd thinking, oh, they are going to put the kid over. Not quite. Afterwards, though, beginning of the end, Fujita ended up in the ring left with all 3 opponents. He took a sling blade from Tanahashi. He took the sliding lariat from Ishii. After that, he was pretty much dead meat. It ended with Okada's greatest hits. He hit the dropkick. He hit the flying elbow. Mm-hmm. He hit the Rainmaker pose, and then he just gave him the straight-up Rainmaker for 3. Great match. Even though he did the job, this helps Kosei Fujita a ton. It was fun. It was well-worked. It was emotional. We'll get to the post-match after this. In the end, though, Jeremy, do you agree with me that this is the best loss of Fujita's career? It's only going to help him.
Oh, come on. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, okay, let me ask you this. After Okada announced that he was leaving, did it ever change? Did you ever think that TMDK might win this match?
No, not really. I just thought that they aren't going to have Fujita go over these 3 guys in this situation here. And I kind of suspected exactly what was going to happen, that the match was all going to be about Fujita getting close but losing with valor, and that would be the story. And I thought that if there was ever a belt and a situation in which vacating the title was a better option than putting someone else over, it's this one. This group of Hall of Famers have brought so much to that championship. And it's fitting for them to relinquish this. These are 3 of the best that's ever been in New Japan. They teamed together for a long time, brought the level up. And now I think those, even though they vacated them, I think whoever ends up with these titles,
or just Okada?
Oh, I mean, everyone was. I mean, remember there was an intriguing story that could Ishii even team with Tanahashi, and then they learned to work together.
Like, are they just going to find a third, or are they just drop the belts?
Oh, well, that's a good question. We don't know that going forward, but either way, whatever way they decide,
like, who do you replace Okada with? Like, it's just like it's scraps, and I don't mean that to diminish the person doing it. That's a little disrespectful to them, but it's like you put them in a losing scenario. So I was just curious about that. The only other reason I didn't think Fujita, that this team was going to win, was they just had Zack Sabre Jr., Shane Haste, and Mikey Nichols face them as well. And if this team beat them and Zack Sabre didn't, that doesn't look good for just chronology. And you'd have to pull that thread, TMDK, because Fujita is still a young boy, right? Like, he's still on excursion.
Kind of, sort of. But yeah. And Dunstan says this match was awesome. I did. And then they did sell a lot for Venkin mentions they sold a lot for Fujita right there. And the Okada dropkick, he kind of got Okada with one of those too. And Dunstan says Fujita is so young. Yeah, he's 22. All he needs is at least an excursion to find his unique style and character, and he will rival Hiromu, he thinks. That's pretty high praise. And Colin mentions it was just Okada. No, they haven't really said what Tanahashi and Ishii are going to do, if they are going to try to find a third, or if Okada vacating the title means the whole team does. That they haven't really said a whole lot about yet. I guess we'll find out going forward. What do you think, Jeremy? What do you want to do?
To put a cap on it, I would just say this match is not going to win any award anywhere, but it was a fantastic match. It was super special, and I encourage everyone who's ever watched any match in Okada's career to go ahead and watch this match and the post show that we're going to talk about, because there was just, it was one of those things that once you watch it, it's much like the Jay Briscoe thing on Dynamite. It was just a special time to be a wrestling fan. And if you love wrestling, make a point to watch the January 24th Never Openweight Trios match on New Japan World, because it was great. All right, take it from there.
Okada got on the microphone afterwards and said, I don't want to cry. I've cried enough. And then absolutely sobbed, broke down into, could not do it, choked up. And,
I started crying.
It was
a 43-year-old man, and I felt for this dude. Like, this was just like, we've all felt every bump that he's taken, man.
That's when he announced that he was vacating the championship, and what else was he going to do? But at that point, he thanked Ishii, he thanked Tanahashi, he thanked the crowd of Korakuen for their support. He was crying. Dozens of people in the crowd were crying. They were chanting his name.
Like wiping his eye a little bit.
They went back to post-match comments. In the post-match comments, Tanahashi talked for a little bit, full of respect for Okada. Tomohiro Ishii choked up and had to turn away from the camera. 100% genuine. Could not continue his post-match comments because he was so choked up. And I love that he said, I learned a lot from Okada both in and out of the ring, which I thought was a very interesting thing for Ishii to say, that I think he may have picked up on some of the ways Okada interacts with people, which is almost universally praised. Right. And just not only the work, of course, in the ring, because Ishii doesn't take a backseat to anyone, neither does Tanahashi. But I thought it was fascinating that he said, I learned a lot from him, even though Okada's a good bit younger than him. It's these guys do travel together. Like the factions travel together, and they're together a lot. And you can tell what this, how much he means, not only to the company, but to the people who consider him friends. It's some real deep stuff.
The real impact that this man had on New Japan Pro Wrestling, not only as a leader in the locker room, but as a leader of the company.
Mm-hmm. And then, so we don't know what's happening with the rest of the titles there. Venkin says, and before they replace Okada with Naito, it probably won't work, but it would be cool to see. That would be very interesting. Or Suzuki, if possible. Who knows? We'll see. And then, Venkin says Okada has some of the weirdest outside the ring clips I've ever seen. He kind of jumps in on things, doesn't he? He does kind of jump in on things.
All right, before we move on, if you like our content, fightgamemedia.com, please click the like, subscribe, share, aggregate everything that you see fit with our show. We really appreciate it. We pay attention to the comments and both the clips that we air. Apparently, we're popular on Spotify, so like us on Spotify and share that link, and we'll try and be more on top of it there. And what else? What do you got, Steven?
We're coming for you, Joe Rogan. I'm going to be the most popular guy on Spotify from Austin.
Okay. We all have goals. We all have goals.
Hey, I want that $100 million deal is what I want.
And I will be the guy sitting across from you if you do your Joe Rogan rants, apparently.
I love it. I get a kick out of Joe. Don't worry about it.
We are nearing 3,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Wow. If you can help us get to that point, eternally grateful. We also have our own dedicated Speaking of Strong Style audio feed that you can find on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most podcatchers. Thanks to Steven for curating that. And let's get back to our show.
Right. Just want to say, by the way, I was just joking about Joe Rogan thing. Joe has opened up a comedy club here in downtown Austin that's really taken off. It's been good.
You can protect Joe all you want. I'm ambivalent either way.
There we go. I mean, some of the other stuff's a little weird, but we'll overall, we'll move on. Just Five Guys and LIJ. So they had a couple of these matches and a couple more previews. This was an interesting one.
So dumb by the time it ended, but I was all into it.
Hiromu was going to figure out a way to get a little attention out of this. He's been in the background a little too long. So they did this match, Doki and Sonata against Hiromu and Naito. It only goes 9 minutes and 18 seconds, but the Doki Hiromu stuff was really good, of course. And Doki ended up winning it. And what he did was he kicked out of a dynamite plunger. He then rolled up Hiromu deep. I mean, it's like a really complicated cradle with the arms, and he had one of the legs and all this stuff. And he not only pinned Hiromu Takahashi, but he held on to that pinning combination for like 10 seconds. It lasted for until Naito went and kicked Doki to get him out of it. Afterwards, Naito throws what could only be described as a temper tantrum.
A meltdown.
He does. He threw an absolute tantrum, stomped out, did his entire post-match stuff, the backstage comments, laying on what is an incredibly dirty linoleum floor at Korakuen Hall. Let's hope he has his tetanus shots. And just freaked out. What can you say? Lost his shite. And so what that did, Jeremy, added a little bit of steam to their one-on-one match when they have this thing in Sapporo where it's LIJ and just 5 guys in that 5-on-5 series.
Of February, a month from now. This is setting up a month of Hiromu being apoplectic, losing to Doki. You know where this is going. The fact that Doki and Taka Michinoku both managed to get pins against their respective opponents going towards LIJ and a month from now. Doesn't make it any less fun. I'm glad Doki is getting some shine. But at the same time, this is a Hiromu story, and Doki is just a cog in Hiromu's story, it seems like, as we're going through this. It was a fun story development. I thought it was pretty creative. My boy Doki is getting a little bit of love.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Doki too, of course. And Dunstan mentions at least they're adding layers to it. Yeah, that it needed a little bit of something because it's getting a little long in the tooth, but it's coming to an end soon. And then before that, we also had Bushi, Shingo Takagi, and Yota Tsuji against the rest of just 5 guys, Taichi, Taka, and Yuya Uemura. 10 minutes and 2 seconds. It was good again. The one-on-one match series is a nice shakeup, so I am looking forward to that. And all these guys are talented. I'm just a little worn out on the preview tags. But Taka, and this one had an awkward finish because I think Taka got lost a little bit. First of all, he kicked out of the pumping bomber, which I don't think Taka Michinoku was supposed to do. And Shingo looked a little surprised as well, for that matter. He then power bombed him, which is not one of Shingo's finishes, and pinned him with it. So I think something got a little bit lost there. And then Uemura and Yota Tsuji continued to brawl for a couple of minutes after this one was over, to try to put a little bit of steam on their one-on-one as well. And so A for effort.
Yeah, honestly, this is just more of the same. It's not lighting the world on fire, even though Yota and Yuya, when they get in the ring with each other, kind of have that little extra spark that you're hoping every feud has. So that's a good part of it. But yeah, this is just setting up a month from now, man. Chug it along. I don't know if we really want to have LIJ versus House of Torture after we've had just 5 guys versus LIJ and just 5 guys versus House of Torture, but it feels like it's the natural next step, doesn't it?
Shark says no one can have a temper tantrum like 2019 Zack Sabre Jr. G1. Those are legendary. Those are indeed legendary.
That's fair. Dunstan's following that one up.
He's the king of the tantrum. Yeah, you're right. Dunstan is on board with that one. All right, so before that one, we had the War Dogs against the United Empire. This one only went 6 minutes and 15 seconds, but again, all action, really good again. Connors won hitting the no chaser on Callum Newman. Post-match beatdown on United Empire. They threatened Akira with the fork. Maloney was going to stab him in the forehead with the fork. So all just this stuff trying to build a little heat for that cage match on February 11th.
More of the same. Hot, but nothing like amazing that we have to you have to check it out for this. If you're enjoying what is going on with these two factions, more of the same. Go wild.
I'm going to run through the other 3 matches on this card real quick. There's not a whole lot to say about them. Chase Owens, Kenta, and Taiji Ishimori defeated Hikuleo, Jado, and Taguchi. Taguchi was filling in for El Fantasma, who was out sick. Ishimori reversed the crossface to get a win on Jado there. In a singles match that went 6 minutes and 30 seconds, Zack Sabre Jr. Defeated Tiger Mask. Again, this was because Zack was freed up because they moved the title match to this night. So they weren't doing a preview tag like they were originally going to. So Zack got a singles win over Tiger Mask in just a good technical match between 2 guys that know what they're doing.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, this is supposed to be a heater for the February 11th matchup with Danielson.
And then in the pre-show tag, I thought this was fun. Bolton Oleg and Shoma Kato defeated Katsuya Murashima and Toru Yano. Just shows you that Bolton Oleg is not your average young lion. He's getting these wins, and he debuted a finishing move that I don't think I've seen him do before for a finish. Picked Murashima up in a fireman's carry and then did that forward roll, kind of like the beginning of Kenny Omega and the "you can't escape" thing, where he gets him up.
How many times did he wrench him back and forth with the gut wrench?
I did not count this time.
But that was a lot. Like he would not look like it was bothering him at all.
Well, do you see the guy's quads? His legs are insane. I mean, this is one of the best amateur wrestlers on earth. And of course, you have to have that base and things, but I can't fathom what that man squats. On a
so
squat
if you haven't seen it, what happened is that Bolton grabbed Murashima for a gut wrench suplex, but instead of the suplex part, he just gut wrenched him side to side of his own body without moving at all, just back and forth a number of times, and then he just casually tossed it. If I told you this reminded you of Dave Bautista, I would not be lying.
With this, do you think that's some sort of a drill that guys do in Greco-Roman or amateur wrestling where they've got like a heavy bag or something and they just shift it back and forth like that?
Yeah, it definitely felt like something that he has practiced in reps many, many times.
Dunstan Williams says it feels like March is the official reset of the company. I think that we're going to start seeing a lot of changes around the cup. I think they're going to get through this new beginning thing because they were thrown curveballs in January with Okada and Tama Tonga, who they did not expect to leave, announcing they were leaving. Both those guys heavily involved in title pictures. So I think the rest of New Beginning is just to kind of get everybody organized a little bit where they need to go. I agree totally that I think March, once we get past Fantastica Mania, which is when the Lucha guys come in, and then we get to the Cup, that's when we're going to start seeing whatever directions they have decided upon. Because I do think that there were quite a few surprises in that New Japan did not see coming, or at least, I mean, Okada, we knew that he was being talked to, but I honestly think that New Japan thought they had him. That they were
or at least that they had a little bit more time.
And we know Tama Tonga was a surprise. They did not know Tama Tonga was going to make the decision he made. Understand why he's making it. Guy wants to be with his family. Who's going to argue with that? But they didn't expect it to come when it did. So a little bit of a change. And keep in mind, Tama Tonga has either been part of the tag team picture or the never open weight title picture for years and years. So again, that's a guy that
he said 14 years he spent in New Japan.
Yeah, and Benkin said those are directions that needed change. Well, now's the time. So I think.
Can you believe that 14 years when somebody says that was 2010?
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
It was not the odds, my friend. We have a couple matches that were announced for next week, and we have not talked about the matches ourselves for the end of February. You want to run through those real quick?
Yeah, let's go through some of these. So let's go with what's coming up next here. So the next time we get on to NJPW World, there are some shows going that aren't going to be televised. And there's some at the end of January that are part of the Miyajima boat race in Hiroshima. It's called Strong Splash. And this
Speaking
is
of Strong Splash,
this is a whole festival that goes on in Hiroshima around this speedboat. Around this speedboat race. And apparently 2 days in a row, they're having three multi-man tag matches as a bit of an exhibition as part of this boat race in Miyajima. I had to Google that to find out what it was. Apparently, this is a pretty big event in Hiroshima. They're on the water, this speedboat race, and so they're going to be part of that festival there. You can watch 3 tag matches a day on the 27th and 28th in one of the convention halls there.
A rising tide with hull ships, my friend.
Oh, wow. You were ready for these, I got to say.
Do it.
Then there are some house shows. There's one on February 1st in Nagano, Saitama on February 3rd. And then the next time we're back on New Japan World, it'll be on Sunday, February 4th at Korakuen Hall. We have some matches here. Singles matches pitting the United Empire against the War Dogs. We'll see Henare versus Gabe Kidd. That will be the Slobberknocker. Jeff Cobb versus Alex Coughlin. Interesting. I wonder if Coughlin's going to throw around Cobb a little bit. He's a pretty strong dude. Callum Newman and Finlay. And then we will also have the junior heavyweight tag team titles, Catch 2-2 against Maloney and Connors. And again, TJP has been hinting that maybe he'd like to step up in United Empire. He's also hinted that he is going to move up to heavyweight. Francesco Akira even kind of confronted him a little bit in backstage comments about, hey, what about Catch 2-2? So this could be a way to get the belts back on the War Dogs. And if they have other plans for TJP, we'll have to see. It'll give us a hint as to what they have in mind going forward.
I'm definitely curious, but yeah. I feel like the winners of this are not going to be the winners of the cage match. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And we'll see how that turns out.
There was a note about the 5th when they got to the next match. There's hold on a sec. The just 5 guys in LIJ are having a match on the 4th, but can you explain to me about their match on the 5th?
Well, it is a faction warfare gauntlet match. So just 5 guys against LIJ. From what I kind of picked up from Taichi, see if you got the same impression. We're going to start 1-on-1. Whoever wins or gets a fall or eliminates the other, I don't know if over the top is going to count, then the next guy from the eliminated faction comes in and it goes
and
until
then they have a match.
Yeah.
And so like one guy like Sonata could potentially wrestle 3 guys and then lose on the 3rd, and then like the other side can run through, but they'll eventually get down to the final guy on either side kind of thing, and then have a winner. So
I apologize for coughing, by the way. Cedar fever is a real thing here in Texas. All the cedar trees are pollinating like hell.
I don't even know what that is, but it sounds awful.
Cedar
trees.
It
sounds like you're going through your own gauntlet match.
No, it's allergies. It's cedar wood. We have all kinds of cedar trees, and this is their time of year to pollinate, and everybody is just kind of drowning in this.
They get the first to get all 5 eliminations, basically. So they'll run through. It's not like a war game or anything like that. It's next man up when you get pinned, and they'll probably navigate it to the last guy and the last guy.
Oh yeah, so we'll see. That's coming up on the 5th. The only other thing on the 5th, let's see. No, that's about the main thing there. The rest is tags. Then we have more house shows. They're going back to Saitama, Fukushima, and Ibaraki, and then we go on to New Beginning in Osaka, and into an almost sold out Edion Arena on February 11th. This is the one we're probably going to do a live show on February 12th. Super Bowl Sunday here. We'll avoid that. But that one has headlined by the steel cage match between United Empire and the War Dogs. Also, Okada versus Tanahashi for the quote unquote last time. We'll see. Zack Sabre Jr. and Bryan Danielson. And the IWGP tag team match between Chase Owens and Kenta challenging Hikuleo and El Phantasmo. Hopefully they can pick things up a little bit from that match we just had. That's followed up by Fantastica Mania for a week between February 12th and the 19th. A lot of that one is going to be on NJPW World.
I have not unpacked that yet, so I can't talk about it. But next week, we'll talk all about Fantastica Mania.
February 23rd and 24th is, of course, the Friday and Saturday in Sapporo. The big part about that, it'll be Kazuchika Okada's farewell. And we have some other matches that we didn't have last week. On the 23rd, we will have the never openweight title match between Evil and Shota Umino. We'll also have El Desperado versus Sho in what's called a special challenge match, not necessarily a junior heavyweight title match. We'll see if there are other angles between now and then.
Yeah, he had Desperado said he is not putting his title on the line against.
That's right. He said no. You don't have to. We'll see if Sho does something to piss him off enough to do so. TV title match: Tanahashi defending against Matt Riddle, and then the global title of Nick Nemeth and David Finlay on the 23rd. The next day, on the 24th, the singles match series with LIJ versus just 5 guys, and that'll include the Naito Sonata IWGP World Heavyweight title match, and that's the main thing there. And then, of course, Kazuchika Okada's final New Japan match. Those matches not yet announced.
I thought we might get one more never openweight title match, or never 6-man title match out of those guys. So it's really interesting that his last 2 matches. What would you do? Singles match or tag match?
Man, I wonder if the last one isn't going to be like some sort of thing like they did for Shinsuke Nakamura, where it's chaos as a group together against somebody, where everybody's kind of wearing Okada shirts or something like that, and that way all of chaos is there to kind of hug him and send him off and do the speech. Yeah,
they could do it against
kind of leaning that
easily,
right? And so I'm leaning toward that being the case. I was wondering where he was. There, your dog. But here's a question from Colin that I like a lot, and I want to get to this while we're here. I know guys like Okada and Ospreay will possibly come back for the big shows. Because, I mean, if they're in AEW, we're assuming they might come back once in a while. Do you think Tama Tonga Loa will? And again, that all depends on who they sign with. If he signs with the Fed, if he signs with Triple H and WWE, nope. But if he's in AEW or even TNA or MLW, I could see him coming back sometimes.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Yeah. It
New
depends.
Japan shows like Windy City, like down the line, I think he'd be a great
strong
person
shows.
to come in and do a match. Yeah.
Some strong shows in the U.S. It all depends a little bit on how much Tama Tonga pissed him off by giving him short notice on him leaving too. There could be a little of that. So yeah, and Dunstan says that tag title match is filler. Kind of feels that way, doesn't it? I'm hoping Hikuleo and ELP win that one and just kind of move on to other things, but we'll see how it turns out.
Well, speaking of Windy City, there got a couple of additions to that.
Yeah, so we'll see Nick Nemeth, the former Dolph Ziggler at the Windy City Riot, and Minoru Suzuki, Murder Grandpa, at the Wintrust Arena. They released another 1,000 seats this past week, and they vanished in an hour. Vanished. They ought to just open up the whole damn building.
They really should, but I think their strategy is to announce another match and release more tickets. So that there is a coordinated idea that, tickets went on sale, they just announced another match. They keep announcing things and saying like, hey, Suzuki and Nick Nemeth here, and tickets are now on sale. So I think like, hey, it's better than not advertising anything and watching tickets not sell. So like, it is an improvement, but it is not perfect.
It's an improvement, but they need to just open up the whole building. I think they will be pleasantly surprised when they do. Let's see what else we have here. So Shota's got the Evil title match while he got attacked by Jack Perry. And yeah, I mean, that could
that would be great. Jack Perry and Shota for the never open weight title. If that was the direction, that would be a lot of fun.
And McCollum mentions Copeland beating Suzuki last night was BS. Look, he's the most expensive. He's a long fly-in jobber for AEW. That's the way Tony does it. He does the same thing with Ishii. That's why I'm not the biggest fan of that stuff. I don't usually watch it. And,
I got one last hypothetical for you before we call it a day.
All right.
They have sold 4,600 tickets. The
Fantastic.
only two matches that have been announced are Hiromu Takahashi and Mustafa Ali and Jon Moxley for Tetsuya Naito. From everything that you've seen, going to shows, watching these shows, how they've advertised things, do you think that most of the credit should go to Moxley and Naito, or do you think that all four wrestlers deserve some bit of credit for the movement in ticket sales up to this point? Or would you leave it primarily to the main event?
More the main event than Ali and Hiromu, but Ali and Hiromu are doing their part. One, Mustafa Ali is a Chicago guy. Doesn't hurt. Mm-hmm. Hiromu is a draw. There's no question about that. They did well the 2,300 arena when Hiromu was by far the biggest star there. This is a bigger crowd. Moxley and Naito is a match that feels fresh and people want to see it. I think it's also a testament to how Chicago, one of my favorite cities in the world, is and where I kind of was. I grew up near there, not in it, but near there. It might be the best wrestling city on the face of the earth. That's not Tokyo right now. I mean, they just will show up, and they'll show up with enthusiasm. So I think that's a bit of a testament. It's in the right city. It's got an exciting main event that feels fresh. Moxley in New Japan is very special. The New Japan Moxley is very special. Not that the AEW one isn't, but he has an aura in New Japan that's really special. And you got Hiromu, and with the other people announced and other things that have been hinted at for this show, I think people are very excited about it. It does feel like a really big show, and I'm thrilled they're getting this kind of crowd. I hope they've taken the lesson from it, which is announce the damned matches, for God's sakes.
I hope they mic and film it right. Like there can be a lot of attention on this card and on the show. Sure. It can't look like a strong show. Well, it can. Oh God! But it just needs to look better.
Well, you're right about that, and it needs to be mic'd better. Chicago's loud. Let's hear it, for the love of God. Mic the crowd better. Vankin says Stardom is selling pretty well for the U.S. show. I heard. Hope so. Yeah. And and then Perry versus Shota for the Never title would also be good. Dunstan says, yeah,
that is quite the thread pull on that one. That was a great call.
Yeah, that could be a way to do that. It could be a lot of fun. We also saw Satoshi Kojima go to MLW and beat Sami Callihan.
Thank you for taking the bullet and watching that one, Steven.
I did watch it. It's on NJPW World. Wanted to mention one other thing there. NJPW World is starting to build those archives again. It's not all the way there, but if you notice, they've added a lot of historical stuff, including past New Beginning tours, and also what before it was called the New Beginning, it was called the New Year's Golden Series. There's stuff going all the way back to the 80s that has guys like Hulk Hogan, Jesse Ventura, and Tiger Mask, and Dynamite Kid, and stuff like that. So we're starting to see. It shouldn't have taken this long. I'm not trying to advocate that the NJPW World thing has been great, but starting to see those archives like they promised come in finally, and there's some good stuff on there. So go ahead and explore, take a look around.
Well, as we leave this weekend, Steven, and we have more shows, let me just tell you that I am eternally thankful in light of everything that has happened here on this Thursday, January 25th, 2024, that the biggest problem of our wrestling promotion is that its top star is leaving for greener pastures.
Yeah.
What a bullet dodge today, my friend.
I don't know what you're referring to. You're right, the Vince McMahon news again and all that.
Yeah.
There. Yeah, North American
Wrestling.
Wrestling.
Luck to those covering that topic. Not interested.
No,
take it home.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take it home. It was a better week for even though with Okada, Tama Tonga.
That's what I'm saying, man.
Leaving.
I'll take it.
New Japan had the better week. Go figure. So, with that in mind, we will be back next week here. We won't have any new shows to talk about, so we're going to analyze the living hell out of the New Beginning tour. And there's a lot to unpack, isn't there? As we
maybe I'll see if somebody wants to come in and talk some New Japan with us. I can pull.
Might have a guest if we can. We'll talk Fantastica Mania. We'll really examine this New Beginning thing, like you folks have mentioned in the comments. Feels like we're coming toward the true New Beginning, which will be after this tour and
we're
the New
marching
Japan Cup.
To a new beginning at the New Japan Cup.
You're on fire today. I don't even know what to do with you.
Well, you can take me off the air right now.
Oh, fine. All right. You dare me, I'll do it. I'll double dog dare. For Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, do all those things. It really helps us. We're grateful for the time you spend with us each and every week. We'll be back next Thursday to talk, and we will talk to you again very soon. Take care.